Hi-yo everybody, and welcome back to Imagine Your Odyssey. Thanks for joining in, and as you can see, I'm in my studio where I do all my editing stuff for the YouTube videos that you love so much. And why am I doing that? Well, it's because today it was 96 degrees outside with a 104-degree index, and I actually went outside to start this video, got up on top of the RV to pull the shroud off of the AC, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and I started sweating just all kinds of crazy. So it was too hot. So brought it inside, and we're going to do everything from here. So what do we want to talk about today? We want to talk about how does your AC inside of your RV work. So it's important to know because there may be a time when your AC stops working or not performing exactly like it should, and you're going to need a tech or somebody like that to come out and help you with your air conditioner so that you can troubleshoot or figure out what's going on and why it's not working correctly. Well, this will take you through kind of the steps of how the AC itself works inside and outside, and what things that you need to know, and some tips on some things that you can do maintenance wise to make sure that it stays running as good as it can for as long as it can. Welcome back, and let's go ahead and get started talking about the air conditioner of your RV. Now I want to start on the unit on the outside. That's that big housing that does all the hard work to get that amazing cool air inside of your RV. Now there's some components on the inside of the RV. We'll get there in just a minute, but I want to start on the unit on the outside because that's the heart. That's what does all the good hard work, right? So inside of the housing on that unit, there's three main things that we're going to talk about. Now there's some wires and switches and stuff like that, but we want to talk about the compressor, the condenser, and the evaporator. Those three different things. That's what does most of all the work. Now the other stuff controls it and measures it and stuff like that, but the main three items are those. How do they work? Well, you have a compressor, and then the condenser, then the evaporator, and back to the compressor again. Now we'll go ahead and talk about how all that works. Inside of the tubes is a liquid which we call the refrigerant. That's what gets turned into a gas back to the liquid and stuff like that, which would all make sense in just a second. But the way the compressor works is it pulls this liquid that has been turned into a gas and compresses it and sends it to the evaporator. When it compresses all this gas and sends it to the evaporator is a big coil. It looks like a radiator, kind of like the front of your car does. The big radiator takes this gas, and there's a fan on the outside. It's not the fan that blows all the cold air. It's a fan on the outside that's blowing across this radiator to dissipate all the heat out of this gas so that it can turn back into a liquid. Now this is a very important piece. The reason for that is this liquid is going to come through and go to the evaporator. What is the evaporator going to do? Just that. It's going to evaporate all this liquid back into a gas. But how does it do that? So what it's going to do on the inside of your RV is it's going to pull all that air in, and this liquid, now it may not seem right, but it's how it works. The liquid actually attracts heat out of the air. Now you gotta think, if your air inside of your RV is 70 degrees and you're trying to get to 65 degrees, then 65 degrees is cooler than 70, so therefore the air is hotter. So what it's gonna do is it pulls in that hotter air, the liquid is gonna attract that heat, hold on to it, send back the cold air, and then as it heats up, it's going to turn back into a gas again, and therefore go back to the compressor. So it's going to start this cycle all over again. So let's start back to the beginning again. Compressor pulls gas, compresses it up, sends it over to the condenser. As the condenser gets it, it's going to go through these tubes and these coils, the radiator of your car, and a fan's gonna blow through there, blow all that heat off, and as it's blowing that heat off, it's gonna turn back into a liquid. From there, it's gonna send itself over to the evaporator. As it goes through the evaporator, air from inside of your RV is gonna come in, all that liquid is gonna attract all that heat, and then it's gonna start turning it back to a gas. It's gonna send down the cold air, and then that gas is gonna go to the compressor, and you can see how here it's gonna just do the cycle over and over and over and over again. So what are the important pieces of the inside of your RV? Well, that is the thermostat, and that is the vent where it blows all the cold air out, depending on the temperature you set it to. So now we say the temperature that you want to set it to. You go to your thermostat and say it's 72 degrees inside of your RV, and you want to get it down to 65 degrees. You're going to set that thermostat to 65 degrees, and then you're going to go over and you're going to start feeling that nice, good, cold air coming through. What that thermostat is doing is telling the compressor to stay running and keep working until it reaches that temperature. And then at that point, it'll turn the compressor off. It'll stop working until it starts to warm up. And when the thermostat says, hey, you've gotten too hot out here, start working again, it'll kick on that compressor, and then the gas to the liquid, back to a gas, and that big circle will start all over again, and that's how that works. So now, if you take the shroud off of the inside of your RV, or at least on the inside of my RV, you'll see two individual paths. One is where the air goes in, and another one is where the air comes back out. Now, where the air goes in is going to go across the evaporator. That is the part that actually gets cold, or yet takes the heat out of the air. It dissipates the heat and then sends back the cold air so that you get all the cold air on the inside on the other end. So you have the air going in and the air coming out. Now on the air going in, you also have a filter and all that stuff. So if you can look at your shroud and you see that little piece that you could take off and clean out and replace that filter or stuff like that, put that back, that's the intake side that goes to the evaporator coil. And then it goes to the coil, it pulls all that hot air off, sends the cold air out the exhaust. Now on your roof, you may have vents that blow air out or anything like that, but that is the method of which you get your cold air back. So you usually have two different types of air conditioners. You have what they call ducted and non-ducted. The non-ducted air conditioners are the air conditioners that blow the cold air out of the unit right at the unit itself. So you go up there, you turn it on, and cold air starts coming out, and that's the only place it can go. The ducted type actually have two different ways, or at least ours has two different ways that you can send the cold air. One is that you close these little louvers on the little shroud of itself, and it'll push the air through these ducts and then go out different points of your RV. The other way is that you open those little vents and blow cold air straight down in case you want cold air in the immediate area, or if you're working in that area or you're cooking or something like that. Like in my RV, if you want cold air there because we're cooking, then we'll open up that vent and we'll get direct cold air right there instead of spreading it all over the place until we want to get back to controlling air all over the rig. Now, another thing that's important to know about your air conditioner is that it runs off of 110 volts or household type electricity and stuff like that. Not off of your battery, not off the 12 volt system or anything like that. It won't run off of that. It only has 110 that it can run off of. Now, in order to have that, you have to have some kind of system that'll run it, right? You have to have it plugged up to a post or something like that in order to run the air conditioner. Now, some of you may have solar systems out there that are strong enough to build up enough power in a battery that'll run an inverter that'll turn 12 volt into 110 volt and run your air conditioner for a little while, but it's very expensive. But for most of you that have RVs, you're not gonna have that, so you have to be plugged in. So if you're out somewhere and you're not plugged in to 110 volts somewhere, that's that 30 amp or 50 amp plug-in that you plug into, then you're not gonna have any air conditioner. A lot of people that boondock don't have air conditioners, so therefore you have to have 110 volt to run your air conditioner on the inside. You know, I was just thinking about it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click on that subscribe button and click on that bell, and that way you'll get notified every time there's a video out. You know, imagine your Odyssey will be annoying you all the time with a video that comes out weekly. And you can click on the thumbs up and think about some comments and leave down below. And towards the end of the video, we'll be talking about some more of that. So let's get back to the video. All right, now to go over a few things that you can do to help your air conditioner run a lot better inside of your rig. I'm gonna go over a few things that I had to do inside of mine And maybe not, you have to do that in yours. And then some of the things that I do from a maintenance standpoint to make sure that it runs good and healthy. So one of the first things that you can do is actually pull the shroud off. You pull the shroud down and you look at where the air goes in and where the air comes out. There should be a defined barrier between the two, and if there isn't, then you need to make sure that you tape that up good. When I opened up my shroud, I noticed that there was cracks and stuff like that, and I had to tape them up good. So you may have asked, why would I have to go do that? Well, the reason is because when the air comes in and goes around and cools off, it starts coming back into your rig. If you have any kind of cracks or openings or anything like that in that barrier, then that cold air is gonna come down, go straight through, back up into where it's supposed to cool it back off, and just make this little circle and never really get into your RV. So like I said, for mine, I actually had to pull the shroud down, and I had some gaps and stuff like that. So I went in there with some of that silver tape that you put on insulation, and I went in there and taped it all up good, and then put some duct tape over top of it so that everything is sealed up so that the air going in does not get mixed with the air coming out, and you don't lose any kind of efficiency. Now on ours, that's all I had to do. I put the shroud back up and we were good to go. So that leads me into some of the maintenance items that we do just to make sure that our air conditioner runs good. On the inside, we make sure that we pull the little cover down that has a filter in it and clean that filter out just about every week while we're out. Maybe even sometimes 2 to 3 times a week. It all depends on the area that you're in and how dusty it is when you're going in and out and how quickly it gets dirty, but just keep an eye on it and keep it clean, and that'll allow plenty of airflow to get through. It won't make your air conditioner work any harder. Another thing that we like to do is to go outside every now and then. I usually do it twice a year on seasonal changes. You know, the spring to the summer, and then when I go into summer to fall. So the spring and fall times, I usually check them then. What I do is I go outside and I'll take the shroud off and I'll look at these coils and make sure that they're all nice and clean. You don't want any bugs and stuff like that to get in there and get them all dirty, and then the coils can't do their job. Now the coil that you're going to see when you take the shroud off is the condenser. It should look like this radiator with fins that are nice and perfectly flat with a fan blowing through them. You can imagine that if bugs and stuff like that get in there and get it all dirty, and then the fan is trying to blow the air through to cool off this liquid and gas, that it won't be able to blow the air through it, and therefore you lose efficiency and it doesn't work right. So those things that we usually check twice a year. So let's get into talking about a couple of things that you can check on your RV if it's not really cooling like you think it should. So one is the compressor itself. When you turn the thermostat to a temperature that is lower than it is inside of your RV, you should be able to hear that compressor click in. Usually what you'll hear is a drawdown or a different type of noise or something like that that indicates that the compressor is coming on. If you have to, you can stand outside and you can usually hear the difference when it clicks on and off. It sounds like a power draw or something like that. There's a tonal difference. So let's say for this instance that you turn the thermostat down and you're waiting for this compressor to kick in and it's not kicking in. What does that mean? So there's two different things there that can happen. One is that there's a sensor that senses the temperature that turns it on, and the other one is that your liquid or whatever the refrigerant that's inside of the air conditioner system could be low, and if it's too low, the compressor doesn't have anything to compress, therefore it's being told not to work. Now I would suggest, unless you really know what you're doing, to call a tech and get them to come out and take a look to see which one of it is. Now in my experiences, if it's the refrigerant, then most likely you're going to be buying a new air conditioner. I say that because it's not like your car or your house. Your car or your house, you can call the tech over. If it's a little low, they'll recharge it and you'll keep on going until the next time it fails or next time you need a tech. In the air conditioner on an RV, when the manufacturer puts those together, they put it together as a sealed unit. What I mean is they put all the tubes, they charge it up, put the liquid in there, and then they seal the tubes. Therefore, there's nowhere to charge it, and you have to buy a new air conditioner. Now, I hope that's not the case whenever you get it looked at, and when the tech comes, maybe it's just a sensor on the outside or something like that. It needs to be replaced, and you should be good to go. But in my experience, that's something that happened to me. I saw an air conditioner where the charge had gotten too low, and therefore, we had to get a new air conditioner. But I hope that doesn't happen to you. Another thing to look for is that filter we were talking about earlier. Now, if that filter gets too dirty, I'm telling you, there's no way that the air can get in order to blow out cold air, and it's going to do all this work for nothing. So go ahead and check that filter first to make sure that that's doing everything that it should. And then last could be the thermostat could be going bad. Now, those are 3 different things that I've had to check on mine before, is to see if the compressor is coming on, if the thermostat's okay, and if the filter is clean. Outside of that, anything that I've ever had to deal with outside of those things, I've always called the tech to come help. They know what they're looking for, they have all the right tools, and this thing, like I said before, runs off 110 volt, household voltage. This thing can hurt you really bad if you don't know what you're doing with it. Now, if you're somebody that's already schooled in how to mess with air conditioners and stuff like that, then more the power to you, go do your thing. But I don't, so therefore I usually call a tech. I figure I'd be on the safe side and have them come out. I'd rather spend a little money getting them than to have myself laying on the ground because I got electrocuted or something went wrong and I rolled off my RV and landed on the ground. It'd just be horrible. So I usually go get a tech to help me out. But it's important to make sure that you check these coils and all this stuff to make sure that they're good and clean and that they're going to be able to do the job that they're doing. And to do that is to make sure that the filter stays clean all the time. Clean your filter, and if you need to replace it, that thing will keep everything nice and clean, therefore that the system won't have to do all this extra work and cost you way much more money down the road. Now, if you have any other kind of experiences with your air conditioner or found other things that were going wrong with your air conditioner, I would love to know what those are, and you can share those with the community by leaving those down in the comment below on what different types of experiences that you've had. Now, while you're sitting there thinking about some of those experiences that you've had that you love to leave in the comments, and you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and click on that subscribe button if you will, because you know, it's gonna not only get you more cool content, but while you're sitting there with that subscribe button, you click on that little thumbs up and tell YouTube that you like this video, just send it to other people and they'll come in and leave comments, and you never know. There may be a comment down below that you'll be able to learn of something that you didn't think about, and I know that I'm gonna be watching the comments because I'm hoping that there's gonna be something that I get to learn too. So as always, enjoy your camping, stay cool, and God bless.